Let me give you a warm welcome to the Chill Room with KayGee. This is where I sit down, have conversations with myself, asking myself questions that life demands, but we often avoid. And I won't just be talking. I also want to reflect, share my personal stories, lessons, and truths that affects almost everyone, I guess. Nonetheless, I'm your host, KayGee, and today I've decided to step into a very deep topic. For this first episode, I've decided to step into a very deep topic that I relate to. It's very personal, and it's about single parenting. Can a woman raise a boy? Can a man raise a girl? And also, what does it really mean to raise a child alone? I relate a lot to this. About a few weeks back, not weeks, I think months back, I was having a conversation with my brothers, just talking about things that we've witnessed happening between my parents. The fights, the conversations they had. And most was not in favor for my dad. But my younger brother said to me, Kamo, I don't think Dad planned to build a broken home. I've never had anyone saying that. And when I thought about it, when I started thinking deep about it, there's no man or woman who dreams to build a broken home. There's no couple who decides to walk down the aisle thinking that one day they'll raise a child separately. But life has its own ways of testing us, man. Because people grow, situation changes, love can fade, and sometimes it can be tragedy. Sometimes tragedy strikes. In other cases, the home becomes toxic, and the separation becomes the only choice for survival. I've seen that. I've witnessed that with my own mom. The environment was so toxic, and the older we grew, we realized that it would be much safer for my mom to just move out. She was against that. And before I would judge her for wanting to stay, but when she gave us the reasons why she doesn't want to leave, it wasn't only about the toxicity. It was also the fear of going back home, the pressure, the judgment. Because if she was to move out back then, she had to take everyone with her. And by everyone, I mean all my siblings. I have 7 siblings, so altogether we're 8. Same mother, same father. So you can imagine, man, going back home to your parents' house with 8 kids. It's pressure on its own. You get what I'm saying? It's pressure on its own. And the big question I asked myself was, can a single parent truly raise a child? And even deeper, what are the struggles, the strength, the fears, and the lessons of being a single mother or a single father? I so want to hear the side of single fathers, because single mothers is a common story, but it's rare to find a single father side of the story. So I want to start off by answering or asking the question, why single parenting happens. But I know this has different answers, but probably some of them might be common. And what I think is, single parenting doesn't come from one single cause. That one I can assure you, it doesn't come from one single cause. Because for some people, it can be the heartbreak of the relationship that couldn't survive. For others, it's the heavy reality of abuse. Where leaving becomes an act of courage not failure. It becomes an act of courage, which is what my mom ended up doing. Leaving wasn't failure, it was courage, because she had to fight battles that we had no idea of. And for others it can be tragedy. You get me? Maybe a parent taken too soon, maybe either by illness, by accident. Or others, it can be cruel twists of life. You'll never know. I did a bit of research. To my surprise, I just hope the statistics are correct. And in South Africa, 42% of children live with their mothers only. So you can imagine 42 children living with their mothers only. And I think it's at about 4% living with their fathers. So it's actually single fathers are not that, how do I put this? Single fathers, it's uncommon to find single fathers, but among single mothers, it's everywhere. And this tells us that, if my maths is correct, 1 out of 4 children grew up in a single parent household. Now think about that, like 1 out of 4. Now, I want you to pause with me on this one. If you grew up in a single parent home, what was the reason? Was it loss, separation, or something else? And how that shaped you as a person you are today? I'll start off with my story. For me, it was separation, and how that has shaped me as a person. I am confident to say that it was a bit of an advantage for me, because I was a daddy's boy, mama's boy when I was staying with both my parents. I don't think I would have turned out to be the person I am now had I had stayed with both my parents. But staying with my mom alone forced me to move into unfamiliar situations, where I had to deal with stuff just by myself. No daddy, no mommy, just by me. So just ask yourself, sit down and ask yourself whether, if maybe you ended up with a single mother or a single father, like, what was the reason? Do you even know what was the reason? So to me, single parenting doesn't just come from a broken home. It comes from many, many different paths. Some are chosen and some are forced. And every path has its own story. If you were to ask anyone who was raised by a single parent, their path has a totally different story. And then I want to also answer the question, for me, like the struggles single parents face, because when one parent is gone, all the weight is on the remaining parent, and that weight is almost indescribable, if you can think about it, because there's financial pressure, trying to make one income stretch over a lot of things: your rent, your school fees, the clothes, the medical care. And because in South Africa alone, more than 13 million children are supported through child grant, which shows many families are depending on help just to get by, just to push that 1 week or that 1 month, and these numbers, they, behind every statistics represent mothers. They represent fathers trying to figure out if this month they should maybe pay the electricity or buy school fees, school uniform, or clothes. You'll never know. although beyond the money, there's like emotional burnout. Like, imagine being both the mom and the dad, the nurturer, the disciplinarian, the comfort, the protector. Like, you are playing a lot of different roles, and it can be draining. You can tell by just, let's say, being an employee and then working different departments. It's draining, it's draining. So there's also like the fears, whether a single parent would ask themselves if whether are they enough, or are they failing the child. I wonder if single parents do sit down, maybe before they go to sleep or when they just by themselves, do they ask themselves, am I enough? Am I failing my child? Because picture this, a mother working, let's just say 2 jobs, falling asleep on the couch, but still making time to check her son's homework. Or even a father maybe taking his daughter to a school event, wondering if the child feels the absence of the mother. These are not just rare moments. These can be daily realities. So can you imagine the kind of strength it takes to carry that every single day? Like, every single day it's the same routine. And there's things that a single parent can't do. Like, there's things single parent can do. Because here's the truth. A single parent can raise a child. They can teach them, basic skills like independence, sacrifice, unconditional love, resilience. And many of us are who we are because of a single parent refused to give up. But there's also a gap. A mother raising a son may struggle to show him what healthy masculinity looks like. You get what I'm saying? A father raising a daughter may not fully understand the emotional world of the daughter, because the father has no idea. He is not used to that. Only a mother can do that. So sometimes your uncles, aunts, grandparents, mentors, they step in to fill in those gaps. But not every child has that luxury. That's the disadvantage of raising a child just by yourself. Imagine if your child doesn't have that luxury to have uncles, aunts, grandparents, or mentors, So the question becomes, is love enough, or do children need the balance of 2 parents, 2 perspectives, like 2 different energies? Think about that for a moment. I have seen there's what they call co-parenting. There's co-parenting, and also there's toxic parenting. This is the reality we live in, guys. In some cases, the parent aren't together, but they co-parent, When it works, it's beautiful. The child still receives love and guidance from both sides, which is a beautiful thing. But when it doesn't, what happens when it doesn't? It can be toxic. It can become toxic. Some parents use the child as a weapon. And this one, I've seen it happening way too many times, where mostly it will be the mothers using the child as a weapon, keeping them from the other parent, bad-mouthing or manipulating the child. It happens. And in those moments, the child becomes the biggest victim. I did do research on this. I wanted to be sure. And the research shows that children exposed to high conflict co-parenting are more likely to struggle with things like anxiety, trust, and even their own relationship later in life. Do you see how far this goes? So the challenge is this: can we put ego aside for the sake of the child? or do we allow bitterness to shape the next generation? Because if you're using the child as a weapon, that can affect the child, and it can shape your child's life, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. You understand? And I wonder if the benefits of being a single parent, I have never heard it from anyone, which I hope probably if this episode comes across the right person, I might hear a different perspective whether the benefits and strength of a single parent do exist. And yet there's beauty into it too. Like, children of single parent often grow up to be more independent, and I am that example. They become more empathic, they become more resilient. They see sacrifice at first hand. I've witnessed that. Like, you see your mother sacrificing a lot at first hand. You don't need anyone to tell you what their mom sacrificed. You've seen it. And I think you take that with you. You develop maturity earlier. As I said previously, that staying with my mom forced me to be in unfamiliar environments where I had to be mature. Like, I had to. And there's also the bond between the parent and the child. Like, the bond between parent and child can be unbreakable. When it comes to my mom, when it comes to that woman, I don't know. Okay, let me just say this right. When it comes to my mother, I am willing to go to any lengths when it comes to that woman. Like, I have that bond with my mom, even when we have those small fights. But when it comes to her, like, she's my priority, man. And she knows that she is, even though sometimes she thinks she's not, but she is. Like, she's a priority to me. She's a priority, like a priority to me, And think about the strongest people Chances are some of them were raised by single parents who fought through those sleepless nights, to give them a better future. And there can also be the pressure, like the fears and the dating challenges. Yeah, the dating challenges also. But let's not ignore, like, the weight. The pressure of being a single parent is real. There's the fear of not being enough. The fear that the child will resent them for what's missing. The pressure of society constantly asking questions. And this one, I'm not judging people who are questioning our mothers, but I just don't like it. You hear people saying, questioning your mom, like, where's the father of these kids? And in most cases, it happens internally. It will be either your aunts, your uncles, people close to your mom, asking them what happened. Because with my mom, she just doesn't want to say anything when it comes to what happened between her and my father. She just doesn't want to talk about it. So it's pressure on itself. And also there's dating. Being a single parent in the dating world is complicated. Some may see it as a baggage. Like, for me, anyone with a child, I just feel like the relationship will be very complicated, because there's responsibilities within that relationship. But it also filters out the immature. It also filters out the immature. There are some guys who are immature to take that step of raising another man's child, supporting that woman. Because there are men who are doing that, and they're cruising. They are cruising. They're moving. You can tell by their decision making that they understand what they got themselves into. You get what I'm saying? So, can a woman raise a boy? Can a man raise a girl? The answer is yes, but it doesn't come without challenges, without sacrifice, and sometimes outside help. It's not about whether one parent can do it, it's about whether the love, the community, and the support system steps in to fill or to help fill the gaps. There's one proverb I've heard that says it. What does it say? It takes a village to raise a child, and so that explains everything. You can be a single parent, but the growth of the child, it doesn't just come from you. It comes from the community. The support system, the friends, the teachers, the colleagues. If your child is working at a young age, it's not only just you. Yes, it's you when you are at home, but outside there are other people who are also supporting you. Some you might know, some you might not know. There's 50-50. And there's one line I've heard. You know what? Give me a second. Let me just search this song. It's the Mockingbird about Eminem. There's a line where he says something that I want to put in this episode. Hold on. Mockingbird lyrics. There's a line where he said, "We did not plan to be this way, your mother and me, but things have got so bad between us. I don't see us ever being together ever again like we used to be when we was teenagers." This shows that people grow, but then of course everything always happens for a reason. I guess it was never meant to be, but it's just something we have no control over, and that is what destiny is. And that's what destiny is. But no more worries, rest your head, go to sleep. Maybe one day you wake up and this will all just be a dream. I believe, I'm not sure if this was just a song or something that he related to, but that line makes perfect sense coming from a father, giving just a short summary of things not working out between the parents. And not all single parenting comes from breakup. Sometimes it's life, just like Eminem explained. Sometimes it's tragedy, you lose your parents. Sometimes it's brave choices to walk away from abusive relationships for the safety of the child. So maybe the question isn't just can they do it. Maybe the real question is, how do we as society support them so they don't feel like they have to do it all alone? If you grew up with a single parent, take a moment today to appreciate the sacrifices they made. And if you are a single parent listening, know that your efforts, your tears that we don't see, the fears that we have no idea of, your sleepless nights, they matter. They matter. You are seen. It might not be by everyone, but you are valued. You are stronger than you know. Trust me, you are stronger than you know. This has to be, the amount of time it took me to prepare for this, the research and finding the perfect lines. I'm so glad I did this, because my mom would actually be happy to listen to this. Maybe my dad, all the single mothers and the single fathers out there. I'm just glad I actually went through with this idea, because I was skeptical, but I had to touch it, because it's the conversation that I would have just by myself or with my brothers. And this was the Chill Room with KayGee. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the reflection. Thank you for being part of this small space. If this episode touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to follow the the Chill Room with KayGee on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, obviously. Stay tuned. And on all the platforms I've mentioned, the handle is still the same, the Chill Room with KayGee. And until next time, stay safe, stay growing, and stay real. Thank you.